In this episode of the Orange Nerd Show, I am joined by special guest Mr. Matthew Muir. We're talking all about is Disney moderating? Is Disney moderating the company with Latondra Newton leaving the Walt Disney Company? What's going on here? Is there a shift in the approach that Disney is taking? We're going to talk about it up next on this episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Like I said, I am joined by family of the channel. We got Mr. Matthew Muir joining us today. Matthew, welcome back, sir. It's always good to see you, brother.
Thanks, OG.
Perfect. Now, I will be linking all of Matthew's social media, his Twitter, in the description down below. So definitely give him a follow on Twitter. Check him out. He is phenomenal. Very, very passionate Disney fan. A lot of great insight. So definitely check him out. All right. So Matthew, let's dive right into this. So Latondra Newton was recently let go from the Walt Disney Company. Now, she was the chief diversity officer and a real controversial kind of figure within Disney. And, she's been, a lot of people feel like she's been kind of responsible for kind of like this, this very political direction the Walt Disney Company is kind of going in.
Very overt.
The what? I'm sorry.
Very, very overt and very over the top.
Exactly. Very, very overt. And now she was let go, right? So now fans are kind of speculating, like, what does this mean for Disney? Is this a sign that Bob Iger and Disney are kind of maybe moving a little bit more towards the center? What do you think about this, Matthew? What do you think letting her go means? What should we take away from this?
I would say potentially it's a sign that they're potentially moderating, but whether or not they do actually begin to moderate remains to be seen.
Yes, it's an interesting kind of thing. We have friends of the channel like, Captain John D, who we love dearly. Yeah, he was kind of saying like,
he's treating it with skepticism.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. And he is right to that skepticism. Absolutely. Considering the history here with Disney. I'm a little more optimistic than some fans when it comes to this, because I feel like, because some people are saying like, okay, they fired Latondra Newton and they're just going to bring someone in who's like the same. And I'm like, well, my whole mindset with that is like, well, why would they fire Latondra Newton if they're just going to bring someone in who's the same? I think that they are looking to moderate, but they can't just abolish the entire unit, because optically that would be really bad for Bob Iger. He's still a Hollywood guy. He can't, give himself a kind of a bad reputation in these Hollywood circles. So he's got to maintain the division. But I think what he'll do is he'll bring someone in who's a little more moderate to sort of, bring everything kind of back towards the middle. Do you think that's a possibility here? You think that's kind of like maybe the strategy, Matthew?
Yeah, I think that's what they're probably going to do.
I mean, that wouldn't be a bad idea, right? Because you can't completely go nuclear and just get rid of it, because then you're going to have the left come after you, and then you're also going to have all of the Hollywood elites come after you. And Bob Iger can't afford that right now. He's got enough on his plate than have to deal with that kind of mess, So it'll be very interesting to see how that works out. But in terms of moderation, do you see any evidence outside of this Latondra Newton thing of Disney moderating, or do you feel it's kind of business as usual?
I haven't seen too much evidence yet, but that might be because it's a more gradual process.
It is a kind of a gradual process. Like, we didn't really get into this overnight, right? Like, this whole political thing, it didn't happen overnight. It's not going to end overnight either. And it's going to take some time to kind of bring everything back. And, a lot of fans, they're not too happy with a lot of the content. They feel the content is very political. There's a lot of political messaging and what have you. And, they point to movies like The Little Mermaid, like, see, they're still woke, right?
Yeah.
The thing with that though is like a lot of this content, like you said, it's a slow process, and there's a delay here with this stuff. The Little Mermaid, for example, is a product of like 2020, 2019 even. That's just now being released. So I don't think we don't really have a whole lot of information to go on yet. We're gonna have to kind of wait and see what the movies and shows look like in 2 and 3 years from now. Then we'll kind of get a good idea, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be pretty interesting, man. I don't know. I think they need to do it though. I think they need to do it because if they don't, um, look, they're even Bob Iger said this in the quarterly earnings call. He said they understand that there's varying comfort levels for families, right? And if they don't address that issue, they're going to lose a big swath of the population, and they can't afford that right now. They need every single person to, whether it's going to the theme parks, whether it's butts and seats for theaters, they need everybody they can possibly get. So we'll have to kind of see how that all pans out. Now, another big news story of the past week or so has been this Christine Waistlines McCarthy, Disney's chief financial officer. She was let go. Well, I take that back. Officially, she wasn't let go. Fans are speculating she was let go. She's leaving. She's going on medical leave. What are your thoughts on her leaving? Do you think that she's been forced out, that she was asked to leave, and the medical leave thing is sort of like her way of like kind of saving face? Do you feel like it's really just a medical leave thing? Where are you at with that, Michael? Matthew, I'm sorry. Where do you stand with that whole McCarthy thing?
I'd say it really is just her being forced out, but they've just created a medical thing to disguise it. Look, she could well be ill, but it's like they've used that in a way to provide her a quick get out.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think that like they're obviously not faking the medical leave. You can't do that legally. That you just can't do that. I don't think that's an issue here. She has had a history of health issues in the past. Unfortunately, I know her husband also has health issues. So that's a real thing. But I agree with you. I think that I think basically what happened was just Bob Iger said, look, you need to hit the road. You need to get out of here. And you can use whatever you want as your excuse on the way out, but you have to leave. You have to resign. And I think that's kind of what's going on here. And I think that because she has this history, this medical history, her and her husband, I think she's just kind of using that as kind of like a face saving thing, like, oh yeah, I'm leaving because of this. It's kind of like when you hear people like resign and they said like, oh, I'm leaving to spend more time with my family and stuff. It's an optics thing, and I think there's a lot of that going on here with Christine Waistlines McCarthy. Are you now? I don't believe you were ever a fan of hers. Is that correct, Matthew? You were never a Christine.
No, not
so,
really.
So were you pretty happy to hear this news? Like this was pretty good news for you?
I'm in two minds about it. Part of me is happy, but part of me is worried that whoever replaces her might not be much better.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, I know like one of her lieutenants is the one that's kind of stepping in the meantime, and she's sort of like part of that transitionary process, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know, man. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to see. Now, I mean, there's also a lot of talk amongst fan circles and even like the Hollywood trades and what have you. This is a big fish here, Waistlines McCarthy. I mean, she's high up on that food chain. Is this going to maybe delay Bob Iger's departure at the end of 2024? Like, do you think, Matthew, that because now they have a CFO issue, that he might stay on a little bit longer and extend his stay?
Actually, no, I don't. I think he's probably weeding out what he sees as unworthy replacements.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. And we heard back in, I think when he first came back, like around November, maybe it was like December, and I don't remember what trade it was. It might have been Variety or Hollywood Reporter, one of those trades. But we saw that the trades were saying that like, he doesn't like Christine McCarthy, and he didn't trust her, and he wanted to get rid of her when he came back on board back in November. but he couldn't get rid of her because he felt like if you oust the CEO, Bob Chapek, and you oust the CFO, he felt like it was too much instability going on within the company. He felt it would damage the company. And he's right on that. I think that would be too much at one time. So it is kind of funny how like we saw that happen in December. We saw those rumors floating around the Hollywood trades. And then 6-7 months later or whatever, now she's leaving, on her own terms. It just seems a little coincidental. I think he wanted her out. I think you're right, Matthew. I think he's trying to see he's trying to build his team and see who's worthy. And she got cut from the squad. And here's the thing too, Matthew. It's kind of like relationships, man, right? Like, so if a woman is willing to cheat with you, like if she's in a relationship and she's willing to cheat with you, then when you're in that relationship with her, she's going to be willing to cheat on you, right? And with Christine Waistlines McCarthy, if she was willing to backstab Bob Chapek, her boss, if you're Bob Iger, you're thinking, oh, well, if I make her mad in any way, I'm next, right? Like, is that a fair assumption, Matthew?
Yeah, I think it absolutely is. I think it might be because he wants to be able to execute his succession plan properly.
Right, exactly. He wants to have the freedom to do it, and I feel like maybe he feels he has to sleep with one eye open with Christine Waistlines McCarthy there, So it was a good move. I mean, I think it's best for the Walt Disney Company, and I agree with you. I don't think she's a good fit necessarily for Disney. So I think it's a good move overall that he did this. Now, we do have a quarterly earnings, I believe, in August. And there is word on the street now. I've talked to our good friend Dre Vashkai about this many, many times, and he's predicting a pretty bad quarter for Disney coming up in August, right? And I think a lot of people agree with his sentiment. Do you believe, Matthew, that's part of this equation with letting her go? Like, do you believe that maybe they're letting her go now, so when the next quarter comes out and it's bad, they can sort of like hang that on her, like blame it on McCarthy? Is that possible?
Yeah, and more easily find a new CFO, or perhaps more likely even accelerate the selection process.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's gonna be interesting, dude. It's gonna be really, really interesting. Now, I know, Matthew, you follow a lot of this stuff, like corporate C-suite stuff, right? Like right now, it's been a while since we talked, I think, about the CEO succession. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that actually today, because I think last time we talked, it's been a while now, a few months at least. We were kind of both in agreement that it was kind of Dana Walden's to lose right now. Like, she's kind of like the top contender. Are you still kind of in that camp, or do you feel like someone else is sort of coming up, rising the ranks?
I think Dana Walden is most likely, because I don't think Disney is going to launch another external search like they did it last time with Eisner and Wells. And I'm actually honestly starting to wonder if an external search at this point would even work, because people keep saying, but just because as all the other big studios are committing these crimes, just because they're going woke as well, doesn't give Disney the right to do so. That's true, yes, but by the same token, it definitely means how can they repeat the miracle of Michael Eisner and Frank Wells if the camp Wells was selected from is now under the leadership of David Zaslav?
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. You're right. Eisner and Frank Wells, I mean, that was really lightning in a bottle, right? And how do you recapture that? It would be very, very tough. I agree with you. I think it's going to be an internal candidate. I think it will be Dana Walden. I think it's hers to lose right now. A lot of like the park people, right, in our little space, they seem to think like Daddy Josh has a chance. I don't think Daddy Josh has a chance. I think Bob Iger likes Josh, absolutely. But I would be surprised if they pick Josh, because the last CEO pick was a parks person, and Hollywood and Wall Street did not like that. And Disney historically does better when they have studio people running Disney. And I know a lot of parks people don't want to hear this, but Disney is a studio first and foremost. It's the studio that feeds everything. Without the studio and the IP that the studio creates, there would be nothing to build in the theme park. So you need a studio person. And I just don't think Daddy Josh, I just think What was that, Matthew? I'm sorry.
He doesn't get it at all.
He doesn't get it at all, man. He's not ready for prime time. He's not ready for prime time. And he's a parks person. Hollywood's not going to like that, you know? I mean, he's better than Chapek, I mean, in that regard. I mean, he's more of a smoother. But, yeah, I just don't see that happening, you know?
Yeah.
Now,
and I'd also like to say about you were saying about Albert Parks. Yeah. I think although Disney is reliant on IP, and they should they should try and get back to designing more original attractions where they can. I would say that they need the studios to free up that revenue to invest more in creativity.
Right. Yeah, they should. I mean, I would love original attractions to come back, you know? I mean, and Disney's done some see, it's funny because overseas, internationally, they've actually done some really great original concepts. They've done the, it's the Tower of Terror at Tokyo Disney Sea, right? And that's actually an original storyline for that attraction, which is really, really cool. I suggest everyone go on YouTube and check it out. It's a really awesome kind of storyline and kind of concept for that ride system. But even also over in Hong Kong Disneyland, they have Mystic Manor, which is kind of this magical house, that very cool stuff. Again, check it out on YouTube if you haven't seen it. These are both original concepts, both in Asia, and really, really great stuff that Imagineering kind of cooked up. I would love to see Disney bring that kind of level of creativity to the States, right? Bring it to Florida, bring it to California. For some reason, they don't feel as comfortable doing it out here. They feel a little more comfortable out there in Asia. But I mean, Asia is kind of kicking our butt anyway, in just about everything with animation and theme parks and all that stuff. But I agree with you, Matthew, though. They got to get back to that, man. Disney has a creative problem right now. Would you kind of agree with that in terms of parks and movies?
Yeah. Absolutely, but the question is can anyone change that right now? Because people still have this delusional belief, and I really believe it is delusional. They seem to think that all of this could have been avoided back in 2005 without Bob Iger, and quite honestly, OG, I'm sick to death of that belief. I know I sound angry, but I really am tired of it.
No, you're fine, Matthew. Now, what are they saying exactly? Like, this could have been prevented back in 2005. How?
If Bob Iger wasn't selected, claiming that there weren't plenty of Hollywood executives already who weren't like Bob Iger, who weren't preparing to go woke, who didn't lack creativity, who weren't overly reliant on IP.
No, I don't believe that. I think the IP is the direction the industry is going in. I don't think it. I mean, Iger loves IP for sure, but you know what? So does Brian Roberts.
Think it started roughly the over reliance on IP.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is industry wide. You know, I mean, has Universal ever done an original concept? I mean, and all their movies are like just, it's just like 17 Minion movies and all that. I mean, Disney's got to move in the direction of where the industry's going, and whether Iger is there or somebody else, it's going to be IP. Now, that doesn't mean they can't dip into some original stuff here and there with the parks, and I think they should. But this whole idea, I agree with you, Matthew, that like, oh, if only Iger didn't become CEO in 2005, we wouldn't have this obsession with IP. That's absolute nonsense. That would have happened regardless, you know. And Disney's an IP powerhouse. Disney all but pioneered this IP landscape with Walt Disney. Like it's very much it's kind of built into Disney's DNA a little bit, you know. Now the political stuff, no, but the IP stuff, absolutely, right? So it's interesting. It's very, very interesting, Matthew. Now, now for Bob Iger, you supported him like his first run at this? Were you pretty okay with him at his first run?
It wasn't until like 2014 or 2015, however, that the cracks started to appear. And people keep saying that the parts were perfectly all right until 2019. But I disagree with that. I honestly think the introduction of digital integration, even without the charge, was sort of an appetizer for what was to come. So, and that was while Tom Staggs was still parks chief. So I honestly think that Iger could easily start implementing the current services we got even without Chapek.
Oh, absolutely. And you're right, Matthew. Very observant. I mean, it did start around 2014, 2015. The cracks were there, right? And I think a big part of that happening was because what happened in 2012? Well, what happened in 2012 was Iger was not only the CEO, but he also became chairman of the board in 2012.
And he also got rid of the president position.
Yes, exactly. So there was a definite issue with like the checks and balances, a check on his power. And he even admitted that. I mean, and to his credit, he admitted that like when he stepped down a few years ago, he even said that he started to have an issue with people kind of disagreeing with him. You know, he started to get like a big head. So I do believe like when you say 2014, 2015, that kind of coincides with this like kind of absolute power that he gained in 2012. And, you know, you started to see the fruits of that, you know, 3 or 4 years later. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. We'll see how this pans out. I'm actually kind of, look, I don't dislike Bob Iger. I've been critical of some of the decisions he's made, but I know a lot of other fans don't like him at all.
Right now, many of whom are actually friends of ours.
Yes, we have friends who do not like Bob Iger at all. Yeah, and it's a thing out there. I mean, a lot of people don't like him, and a lot of people that used to like him are souring to him now. Even right. I'm kind of the mindset, Matthew. Like at this point, he's good for right now, but I'm ready for a new CEO. I'm ready for someone to get in there with some fresh eyes, just something different. Are you ready?
Yeah,
for that?
I only really saw his return as like a temporary measure.
Right. Oh, completely. Oh, it's completely temporary. Yeah. And he made it very clear too, like this is temporary. Like I'm leaving in 2 years, you know? And from what I understand, his wife, Willow Bay, did not want him to come back. Like she was yeah, because, well, you know, with the kids and the family, you know, obviously this takes up a lot of time. I think she wanted him to kind of go into retirement mode. So I think it's going to be tough for him to, if I don't think he's going to extend his contract. I think he's out. I think he's absolutely out. Especially with his wife, like telling him no. That holds a lot of sway with a dude. You know what I'm saying? So I think that he's going to definitely leave. And we'll see, man. If it's Dana Walden, we'll see how she handles, you know, running the company. I'm open to it. You know, we'll kind of see how things turn out with somebody different. But I think it's time. We've had Bob Iger for a very, very long time now. It's like 20 years. I don't know. I think get someone else in there with some fresh eyes and hopefully they can kind of turn everything around. And keep in mind, fandom, with every new CEO we get, there's going to be good and there's going to be bad. So let's just say it's Dana Walden. Dana Walden might do a lot of things better than Bob Iger did, but she might also do some things that were worse, right? It's probably going to be a mixed bag. So don't expect anybody to go in there and be perfect, or don't expect anyone really to go in there and be total crap either. I mean, there's going to be good and bad with these people, and it's going to be different goods and different bads, you know? So we'll see, Matthew, but we're going to close it out, Matthew. But I just want to ask you on how hopeful or not so hopeful are you for the future of the Walt Disney Company right now? Like, where do you stand right now, Matthew?
I think my confidence in the company remains, knowing that Iger is on his way out.
Yeah.
Although, having said that, I think it's definitely still cautious optimism, because to say that anyone would be better than Iger is a bit of a stretch, to say the least.
Yeah. We just don't know. We really, you just don't know. We'll see. But Matthew, I want to thank you so much for coming on, brother. And everybody at home, I will be linking his Twitter account down below. So definitely give him a follow on Twitter. And Matthew, do you have any other social media? Like, are you on Instagram or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I am on Instagram. Are you on there as well?
Okay, I can go ahead and send me those links for your Insta and all that, and then I'll add that in the description as well, so that everyone can follow you on those platforms. Okay.
Okay, just send it now.
Perfect. Thank you, Matthew, for coming on, brother. It's always a good time talking shop with you. Thank you also so much for watching. Comment down below with all your thoughts on Disney and their possibility of them moderating, the Christine Waysign's McCarthy departure, what that means, all kinds of stuff we talked about today. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Orange Nerd Show. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye, everybody.